upon people as part of an agenda of privatisation. And that agenda is shared by Fianna Fáil. But that aside for the moment, the manner in which the company was established, how it's been managed, the unfair imposition of water charges has been chaotic. It has been farcical. And I think you missed the main point. The main point is that the vast majority of people cannot pay. It isn't that they won't pay, they simply cannot pay. And now it has emerged that struggling families will be charged €180 for a call-out to fix leaking pipes. Now, you have just dismissed that and said you don't know where that came from, but on the 7th of October, and I checked this before I came down, you told me that no bonus would be paid. That's what you told me. The noises from the government all appear to be about scapegoating the board and the senior management team, but you see, the creation of all of this, and no one was clearer on this than your Minister Fergus O'Dowd. It's a mess, and it's the government's mess. So will you now accept that as an entity it's toxic? In its present form it cannot be left with the responsibility for the delivery of water services in this state, and that gCeannairí must be fundamentally and radically reformed into a single public utility that acts in the interests of citizens? And would you further acknowledge that the message that you got in the by-elections and on the streets in Dublin is that people are against what you're doing because they cannot afford what you are calling upon them to do? And Fianna Fáil is now belatedly calling for a suspension of water charges. Taoiseach, could I ask you to accept that you can do nothing other than abolish this second domestic water charge? People can't pay it. Your government should acknowledge that.
Thank you. Taoiseach.
I don't share your view at all, Deputy Adams. It's already clear in the legislation that this entity cannot be privatised, and you should not go around scaremongering that this is an attempt or a beginning of a process to privatise Uisce. It is beneath you who can read the language in the legislation very clearly to say that. I just want to put that on the record. Clearly, the question that people have about anxiety and concern about payment is a legitimate concern for everybody to have. And I think there is a degree of confusion because of the scale of the assistances that are being provided either through the tax credit system, the household packages or other elements of the social protection area. But let me remind you that what we want to do here is through the provision of almost 600 million as a subsidy from government to Irish Water, to provide for a position where every household in the country is given a free allowance, which was part of one of the pillars of direction given by the government to the regulator, that children be free and that there be an average metre charge of 240 per annum, or an assessed charge for 2 plus 2 of €278. Now, you're aware that the regulator has already indicated that assessed charge would continue for 9 months from the date of billing from next year. And that means that, for instance, if somebody gets a bill for somebody uses more water than €278 applies to, but their bill is actually less than that, they pay the lesser amount. There's an incentive here to not only to register to avail of the household charge, but also to conserve water. And I think that's an essential part of why Irish Water is being set up in the first place, because we need to invest off balance sheet to provide quality treatment works, quality infrastructure, so that people can have high quality drinking water and that it's there for business and consumers alike. So the question that is there in respect of the issues about people ringing Irish Water or ringing the councils and not getting an answer, these are matters that Irish Water and Arvia are now dealing with and considering. And obviously, no more than many other entities that we've had in the past, I recall the educational grants with Cúrsaí some time ago, with other areas that were of great concern to people. Once they're dealt with and people can have answers to their questions, things can calm down. This is very important for the future of our Irish people and the Irish economy. And we haven't measured up for the last 40, 50 years. It's now time to deal with it. And I accept, Deputy Adams, that there are issues that are a cause of concern, and we will deal with those clearly and decisively and effectively so that people can understand, I can live with this and I understand what it is that we're going to get from the payments and the contributions that we make.
Deputy Adams, 1 minute. Thank you.
Well, Taoiseach, people have the right to water, and I know it isn't free. It has to be paid for. And Sinn Féin have shown how it can be paid for. And I was at a public meeting last night in Dundalk. And last night in Dundalk, I heard from speaker after speaker on the floor that they cannot pay for this. Women with small children, elderly people, people living on their own. And they're dealing with the reality that they will get water dependent on their wealth. They will get water if they can set aside some other bill. Now, your Minister of Finance says that the water charges are modest. You've also said no bonus culture. I don't accept what you're saying here today, that this cannot be privatised. And I want to call upon people on the 1st of November. There are, in every county and in as many towns as possible, demonstrations calling upon the government to scrap these water charges. And I want to call upon people to come out and demonstrate and to show you that what happened in Dublin wasn't just a one-off. Secondly, regardless of what you say about Fianna Fáil, Sinn Féin did show in our alternative budget, and Pierce Doherty spelled this out, how this could be paid for. But I think all the time, Taoiseach, on this issue, you miss the point again and again and again. The people have had tax upon tax, charge upon charge, punitive measure upon punitive measure imposed upon them, and at the same time they've had cut in public protections and health services and current allowances and child benefits and elderly citizens' entitlements. Cut. And this is a cut too far. People cannot afford it. Taoiseach, please accept that, acknowledge that, and do something decisive about it. Stop the imposition of water charges and deal with this as it should be dealt with.
Accept at all that your submission in your budget measures up to reality. There's a 500 million hole in there, and you're going around the country. And you're telling people out in every constituency that the charge for water is going to be €1,000. Scary. That's what you're saying, and that's what your people are saying. It's going to be €1,000. Sinn Féin calling, you don't pay property charges, you don't pay water charges, we'll look after you, pay for nothing, and we'll have a great country. Thank you very much, Deputy Adams. You don't live in the world, in the real world at all. Now, I'd like to say this to you as well. The people up in Dundalk are as entitled to have legitimate concerns as the people down in Cork or anywhere else. And it's a good thing to talk about these things. But it's also good to remember that 80% of the bills that will go out for from Irish Water will be for €24 or less per month. €24 or less per month. 80% of the bills in the country. And the government have set out a range of supports for people in different categories, and we want those to reach every household in the country. Last week's budget, with people making contributions, did point out that there were nearly quite a number of houses where there is not a level of income tax or a level of support that would draw under the current benefits. And we need to cover all of the households here. So from that point of view, I'd remind you that the Minister for Social Protection introduced a payment, a €5 payment per week per child benefit, to be followed up again next year and the year after if the government are re-elected. And much to your astonishment, a return of 25% of a Christmas bonus, which will have to be dealt with in the social welfare legislation coming up here. So what we want to do, and believe me, Deputy Adams, going back to the importance of the reasons for setting up Irish Water, to deal with the poor infrastructure, the poor quality of drinking water in many cases, the poor quality of the treatment works, that we fix all of these for the next 50 years, and that's why Irish Water is set up. We now have to move where Irish Water itself, as part of the Unitary Air Board, can deal with the practical questions of answering phone calls and giving people information about where leaks are, when they can be fixed and so on like that. But also that we give certainty from a government point of view as to the charges, the levels that apply, how they'll apply, for how long they apply, in respect of the structure that's set out.
Thank you.
Given that government did make two recommendations, policy positions to the regulator: one, that every child should be free, and two, that every household is entitled to a 30,000 free litre allowance on production of the PPS number.
Thank you.
So it's not being privatised; it's being retained in public ownership for the benefit of the people of our country, and it's time to deal with it. But we do want to deal with it. I accept this in a fair, affordable, clear way that people know exactly what they're going to get for the payments that they make.
Deputy Mick Wallace, thank you.